Mercedes' pace in Barcelona is something that brought back the hope that we'll have a competitive season ahead of us, but after the latest statements from the team, this might not be the scenario after all. Although the Brackley-based squad found the right foundation to work on, it's very unlikely that they'll be able to catch up to the rocket ship that has been built by Red Bull, something that Mercedes is very aware of. To top that off, their main rivals, Aston Martin and Ferrari, came out with statements that are worrying, to say the least, for Mercedes, as the Silver Arrows are now in a position in which they have to prove themselves yet again. After 18 months of developing a car in the wrong direction, Mercedes seems to have found the right way as to how a car should look and perform, complying with the technical regulations from 2022 and the tweaks for the 2023 season. And it's one of the best things that could have happened to the F1 world, with the double podium in Barcelona and the 33 points going to the Brackley-based squad, lifting up the spirits of not only the team but the fans in general. A one-team-dominated season is currently still a threat, and to top this off, it seems like Verstappen would be the only driver cruising first to the checkered flag, as Perez has dropped the baton in the past two races. But with Mercedes proving to be faster than anyone not named Verstappen in Barcelona, the expectations were set very high with the new side pod design. While many believe that the aero time will propel the team much closer to the RB19 in the following months or so, the worrying update that came from the Brackley-based squad has left their fans devastated as to whether or not we'll see one of the two Brits more frequently on the podium. Bringing an upgrade is a very difficult mission, especially during the budget cap era, and Mercedes didn't just bring a side pod design, they brought an entirely new philosophy to Monaco and tested it out further in Barcelona. This also included a new floor, which we saw was nowhere near comparable to the RB19's complexity, and a new front suspension. The trackside engineer of the team, Andrew Chauvelin, explained the difficulty of the budget cap and how big of a challenge it posed for the team. And according to him, we shouldn't wait for more upgrades for Mercedes, at least not massive ones, because the front suspension was the one that thinned the team's piggy bank the most. When talking about this, Chauvelin said, "Basically, we made a new suspension, and suspension is expensive to make and to fit on the car. So the reality is that with the budget cap, we're always looking at our situation in this World Championship. We don't know how many things we're going to do. I don't expect to make any leaps and bounds." Obviously, Red Bull's penalty is yet to come into place, but with the advantage that the RB19 has over the rest of the field, one couldn't help but wonder, was the penalty by the FIA fair? If you're able to make such a great impact on the car's performance, then 10% less aero time and $7 million might not be too hefty or draconian of a price tag for your shenanigans, because then you'll have a season in which you'll finish 24 seconds ahead of everyone else and the domination will be secured. Of course, this is the last thing that the Formula One world is praying for to happen, but as things stand, Mercedes' newest upgrade package could only do so much. Yes, the aero time further down the road will bring them closer to Red Bull, but closing a gap of half a second to a second per lap is definitely not something that can be done throughout the course of one season, let alone throughout one upgrade package, something that Mercedes acknowledged very early in the season. It's something that Horner has also spoken about, saying that Mercedes has likely spent the majority of their budget cap on the newest upgrades, knowing how much they cost in today's era. Furthermore, he didn't even show a sign of worry for all of the other teams looking at the floor of the RB19, because seeing it, copying it in 3D and implementing it successfully on your car are two very different things. 40% of the downforce that is generated on today's cars comes from the floor of the car, and Russell has also emphasised the importance of this part on the W14, throwing shade at the new side pod design and saying that Red Bull could mount the no-pod side pod design and still be the fastest car on the grid. But it's not just Russell who doesn't like the new side pod design, as there are reports that Wolff is still not convinced that this is what the team needs in order to close the gap to Red Bull. The renowned F1 journalist Christian Menath spoke about this matter, adding that the sole reason why Mercedes brought the new side pod design is because they wanted to tick off boxes on the potential list of what makes the W14 so difficult to drive. When talking about it, Christian said, "What is a concept? You've heard that question for the Mercedes engineers quite a lot. We were talking to Andreas Steller, and he was talking about side pods and why these wide side pods work better with this generation of cars and bring the best out of the floor, because everyone is talking about the floor. Toto said they just wanted to make something out of the equation. He's still not convinced that the concept of these side pods is the better one. They just wanted to take something out of the equation to be sure where the problem is. Mercedes, however, managed to get the most out of its design thanks to the weather in Barcelona, because as the temperatures cooled down from Friday to Saturday and Sunday, the W14 was able to adapt faster and better to these conditions and therefore win the double podium, with Russell starting all the way back in P12. Not to take away anything from them, what they did was amazing, and I certainly hope this will happen more often throughout the season. It's just that they can't hope for cooler temperatures every time they go to a certain circuit, especially not after the recent statements of Aston Martin and Ferrari. Mercedes' main rivals, one of which is their customer company, sent a fierce warning to the Silver Arrows, with Alonso saying that the AMR23 would crush everyone in Montreal, and Barcelona was the last race that the team would finish outside of the top 3 places for the remainder of the season. Truth be told, while this is a bit of a far-fetched scenario, Aston Martin is bringing upgrades to Montreal to back their talk, and the reason why everyone is hyped for the upgrade package is because they're the only team that hasn't brought a massive package to the car yet. Aston Martin's team principal, Mike Crack, has slammed the Mercedes pace gain in Barcelona, believing it's just a one-off show and things will get back to normal in Montreal. When he was asked as to whether or not Mercedes is now the second fastest team with the new philosophy on the W14, Mike said, "I think it's too early or too easy to say that, because we've not seen the full picture in qualifying. It's something that is similar to how it is at the beginning of the year when we say we need 3 races to see where we really are. Now, it could well be that others, Mercedes, have made a bigger step, but our early analysis so far doesn't reflect that." Earlier this season, when Aston Martin shocked everyone with their competitiveness, Alonso said that the car will change for around 2/3 of what we're currently seeing, and the first step will be made in Montreal. But with a design that seems to be the closest one to Red Bull, the next thing that the team needs to change is the floor. Something that could bring a lot of performance to the car due to the fact that the similarity between the AMR23 and the RB18, the car that the Silverstone-based squad is drawing inspiration from, is just too big. On the other hand, the disappointment of Ferrari is not one that will last long, as Vasseur also sent a threat to all their rivals that the bad performance in Barcelona was circuit-related, and the team brought the massive package to the worst track for their car. All in all, the Mercedes rivals are not ready to give back that second spot in the Constructors' Championship, and while we were hyped for the potential battle between Hamilton, Russell and Verstappen for the race wins, it seems like Mercedes will have to fight to keep the primate best of the rest. Mercedes is now eagerly waiting to see whether the upgrades will be more than enough to fight for the throne, whether they'll work on circuit-specific tracks, or whether there'll be a universal boost to the performance of the W14. Either way, it's going to be one hell of a battle, and while this all translates to bad news for Mercedes, they have the tools to make things work in their favour.